welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, another milestone for Channels Television as the station signs an MoU with partner Deutsche Welle of Germany to jointly produce a new TV environmental magazine program, Eco at Africa. Federal government reviews the nation's security situation as the deadline on ending insurgency in the northeast draws closer. EFCC arraigns the founder of Africa Independent Television, Mr. Raymond Dokwesi, on a 6-count charge of bordering on fraud and corrupt practices. And clashes in the southern Afghan city of Kandahar leaves at least 46 people dead.
On business news, the federal government approves 407 billion naira as immediate fuel subsidy payment.
And on sports news, Nigeria's Dream Team 6 qualify for next year's Olympic Games, secure a place in the final of the Under-23 African Cup of Nations.
Multiple award-winning station Channels Television has recorded yet another milestone. The station today in faraway Paris, France, signed a memorandum of understanding with its partner and Germany's international broadcaster Deutsche Welle to jointly produce a new TV environmental magazine, Eco at Africa. The MoU was signed by the Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of Channels Television, Mr. John Momo, and the Chairman of DW, Mr. Peter Limburg, on behalf of both organizations. Our correspondent, Ayola Kazim, reports.
Right in the presence of the German Federal Environment Minister and the Nigerian Minister of Environment, the chairman of both Channels Television and the Germany's international broadcaster Deutsche Welle signed the partnership that will see the two organizations jointly produce a new environmental magazine program, Eco at Africa. The program, to be produced both in Berlin and Lagos, will focus on environmental challenges and solutions in Africa.
Climate change challenges us all, every country and every society. And at the same time, we all see the problem from a different point of view. What could be better at building bridges than free and independent journalism like that, practiced by Channel 24 and Deutsche Welle?
The events that held at the climate conference in Paris, where world leaders are attempting to have a binding agreement that will help to reduce the impact of climate change, has been described as being a part of a historic week.
I really welcome this initiative and I look forward to starting from the day after Friday, which is to carry COP's decisions to people and make them very real in their lives.
With this partnership with Channels Television, this is the first time Deutsche Welle, Germany's international broadcaster, will be engaged in a joint production of a television magazine across continents.
Africa is really concerned about the climate change, and Germany has a long tradition to report about environmental questions. So I think it matches good together that we have, on one hand, an African country together with Germany co-producing a magazine about environment.
For the chairman and chief executive officer of Channels Television, Mr. John Momo, this is one huge step.
In Nigeria, we have big issues about the environment, as it is all around the world. But much more importantly is the fact that we have a partner in Deutsche Welle who will be helping us to unearth the stories, tell the stories to Nigerians and Africans, and then bring up to the fore the efforts that have been made by people around the continent so that it serves as an advocacy for others to follow.
The partnership sealed here in Paris with Deutsche Welle will create more platforms for Channels viewers where they will be informed on the great efforts to save the environment. From Paris-Le Bourget, the venue of the 2015 Climate Conference, I'm Ayola Kasim, reporting for Channels Television News.
A huge step indeed. Congratulations once again on the partnership. Now, the president has blamed the previous government for what he called the abuse of trust in the purchase of equipment and other ammunition to fight Boko Haram, a situation he says has cost Nigeria a huge loss of lives and property. President Muhammadu Buhari was addressing members of the House of Representatives, whom he hosted to a presidential dinner at the banquet hall. He described as unfortunate a situation where the Nigerian army, which defended Africa in peacekeeping operations, could not engage Boko Haram. The president urged the lawmakers to support him in the fight.
We expended a lot of the meager resources we have. We give it priority to try to make sure that the morale of the military is raised by getting officers to be with them, with the men, and whatever equipment we can get. Unfortunately for us as a people, in trying to do that, we uncovered that billions of naira and hundreds of millions of dollars were expended by the previous government to acquire good equipment and ammunition so that the military can operate. Unfortunately, I think there was abuse of trust at various levels, and that cost Nigeria a lot of lives and a lot of goodwill. Some of it we cannot keep quiet about it, we cannot hide it. And it's coming out gradually. It's most unfortunate.
Now, persons displaced by the Boko Haram insurgency may now heave a sigh of relief as plans are underway for their resettlement in their communities next year. This was disclosed by President Muhammadu Buhari during a meeting with a delegation from the International Rescue Committee led by former British Foreign Minister David Miliband. The president told Mr. Miliband and his delegation that the federal government will welcome the support of the IRC and other local and international non-governmental organizations for the rehabilitation of the IDPs. On his part, Mr. Miliband promised that the IRC will intensify its current rehabilitation work, from which 350,000 displaced persons have benefited already, mainly in Adamawa and Borno states.
We are working at the moment in the northeast of Nigeria, and I've had the good fortune to spend the last 2 days in Borno state and in Adamawa state. I've met with governmental officials, with local people, with host communities, and with internally displaced people. And I was able to report on what I had seen and what I'd been told about the needs of the people in the northeast of Nigeria. I was able to explain to the president the very strong commitment of the International Rescue Committee, which works in 30 countries around the world, to work very closely with him and with his teams at national and the state level to help address the social and economic needs of people in the northeast of the country, which are very real indeed. I was also able to talk about the contrast between the camp-based settings in which about 10% of the IDPs, the internally displaced people, are living, and the conditions for the 90% of those people who are living with host communities. And we met with both those who are living in host communities and those who are living in camps. Obviously, this is a very challenging time, but the shared goal for us all is to help people return to their communities in safety and in some degree of economic independence. That's something that the international community is happy to be supporting the government of Nigeria in achieving, but we recognize that this is a long process, and one in which there are some important short-term steps that are necessary to meet the immediate humanitarian needs that exist for up to 2 million people who've been displaced by the conflict, and a significant number of others who live in host communities but have significant economic and social needs.
To legal matters now, the founder of Africa Independent Television, Mr. Raymond Dokpesi, has pleaded not guilty to a 6-count charge bordering on fraud and corrupt practices brought against him by the federal government. Mr. Dokpesi, who was arraigned before a federal high court presided over by Justice Gabriel Kolawole in Abuja, described the charges against him as untrue. In count 1, Mr. Dokpesi and the Dar Investment and Holding Company Limited are accused of receiving public funds to the tune of 2,120,000,000 naira from the account of the Office of the National Security Advisor with the Central Bank for the funding of media activities for the 2015 presidential campaign of the People's Democratic Party, contrary to Section 58, subsection 4B of the Public Procurement Act 2007. Now, the National Orientation Agency has concluded plans to deploy its officers to aggrieved communities in the southeastern part of the country to sensitize youth on the need to sustain a united Nigeria. The Chief Executive of the National Orientation Agency, Mr. Mike Omeri, told journalists in Abuja that the state governments are in the process of finding solutions to the concerns expressed by pro-Biafra agitators. He urged the youth to remain committed to strengthening the principles that guide national development.
Fresh calls by protesters in the southeast and parts of the south-south region over the actualization of Biafra have sparked huge concerns over the unity and security of the country. Renowned writer and Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka calls the agitation an idea that cannot be suppressed until fully discussed, while the National Orientation Agency proffers some solution through its planned sensitization program.
Right now, as I'm talking to you, my state directors in the southeast, all of them have created another strategy that we will deploy to engaging the people at the individual level, at the community level, at the group level, at the workplace level.
The military's warning of serious consequences for anyone who tries to carry out treasonable acts has also drawn attention, but there are still calls for the government to do more to quell the unrest.
Biafra as an issue is not just about the deprivation in the southeast. Whatever is not enough, whatever the indices of poverty are across the country remains the challenge, it remains the idea. They represent the need for us to look inwards and begin to address some of those challenges that have made our country, denied our country the kind of progress that we have now. All Nigerians created the problem, and Nigerians must find a solution to it. We cannot create the problems, then we begin to walk away. Whom are we leaving behind?
In this position, many Nigerians with the deadly Boko Haram insurgency in their minds know clearly that the security situation in the country is far from over, but stand uncertain as to how new developments like this would eventually be resolved. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, supporters of the APC in Bayelsa State protest against the cancellation of last Saturday's governorship poll as 14 political parties applaud INEC's decision. That's in a moment. To join us again.